Hi folks, my name is Matt Cox. I'm the Executive Director at Miracle Mountain Ranch, and I'd love to share with you some thoughts, some truths from Scripture, from Psalm chapter 63. It's a passage that meant a lot to me, and I believe it meets some needs in our current circumstances of life right now. It's a Psalm of David, actually, and it goes like this. O God, you are my God, early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you, my flesh longs for you, in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water. So I have looked for you in the sanctuary, that I may see your power and your glory. Because your loving kindness is better than life, my lips shall praise you, thus I will bless you while I live. I will lift my hands in your name. My soul is satisfied, as with marrow and fatness, and my mouth shall praise you with joyful lips. When I remember you on my bed, I meditate on you in the night watches, because you have been my help. Therefore, under the shadow of your wings, I will rejoice. My soul follows close behind you. Your right hand upholds me. What I'd love to do is kind of break this passage down, and we'll just look at several truths from this passage that like I said before, I think they meet our needs in what we're walking through right now. Actually, the first point is not in the passage itself. It's about when the passage was written. Psalm 63 is written by David when he's in the wilderness. The wilderness has a special place in my heart. I love the woods. I love getting out in the woods. I love seeing God's creation. It's a big part of what we do here at camp, is allowing kids to interact with the wilderness, with the woods and God's creation. But David's not in the wilderness because he likes to be in the wilderness. David's in the wilderness because, well, I believe God has some lessons for David still in his life. David's an older man when he writes these words. And God has had important lessons for David in the wilderness in the past. As a youth, as a young man, we would look back and we would say, wow, there were some powerful things that God had for David. Like, for instance, one of my favorite passages or stories concerning David and his mighty men are when he and Abishai, his nephew, sneak down into the camp of Saul, and they come up on Saul and he's sleeping. And Abishai, who is one of David's mighty men and his nephew, says to David, he says, let me take my lance and strike him with my lance. It will only take one blow. In other words, he appeals to David and he says, David, let me kill him. Let's be done. No more running, no more hiding in caves. It can all be over right now. And David tells Abishai no, that they were not going to lay their hand against God's anointed, but they would wait on God. Powerful lesson that David learned while he was in the wilderness. We see the wilderness used in the life of Moses, for instance. 40 years in Pharaoh's court to learn powerful things about what it is to be a leader in that world. And then God says, no, I have lessons for you. Welcome to my training ground. It's going to involve sheep in 40 years. He removes him to the wilderness to equip him to lead his people. Even the nation of Israel, there were lessons for them to learn in that wilderness time. And in camping, it's kind of one of the things we do. We go and we remove ourselves so that we can learn lessons from God. We can spend focused time on God. I base our camp off of what was called the Feast of Tabernacles, or the Feast of Booths. We find it in Nehemiah chapter 8 and also in Leviticus chapter 23. It was a time when the children of Israel would step aside for a season, for a week, 7 days, and purposefully remember who God was and what he had done. Special lessons. And while in camping, we look to provide that for people. In this setting, David didn't choose this. God had a lesson for David. David's on the run again. And he's on the run this time from his son, Absalom, who would take his throne and take his life to gain the throne. Certainly not how David would have perceived his older years going. Not how he thought things would work out. So David's in those circumstances when he writes these words. And it's been said of this passage that it's kind of a relational passage, an experiential passage. Experience can sometimes be a poor tutor, right? Because it's just your experience. As a kid, I remember when you got a big heavy snowstorm, oh man, I celebrated. Why? Because there was the potential of a snow day. But did my dad? No. Why? Because he still had to go to work. Same event, different conclusion. So experience can be fickle that way. That's why David takes his experience always back to the truth of God. Pastor Timothy Keller put it this way. He said, through knowledge, we can grasp understanding of the attributes of God. But through Christian life experience, the attributes of God grasp us. And David's response in this first verse, even to these circumstances, is, "O God, you are my God. Early will I seek you." That doesn't mean early in the morning. That means first. God, I seek you first. David tells us this: God is always his first choice and not his last resort. So in this season of uncertainty and change and challenge, may we seek God first. And may we also look to say, God, what are the lessons that you have for us in this wilderness time? Maybe lessons perhaps best learned in the wilderness.